As one of Britain's best-loved and most versatile actresses, Dame Maggie Smith has been delighting audiences for over 60 years. She's the double Oscar-winning queen of the comically arched eyebrow, the spiky funny girl who gave the acting world no choice but to take her seriously. The fact that she created some of her most popular characters in her 70s is just another testament to her talents. So how did this extraordinary career begin? Well, let's start with Maggie telling interviewer Clive Goodwin about the early days from a programme called Acting in the 60s.
The very first definite step was when I was still at school. They had a frightfully good thing that when you'd finished, general school certificate, you usually had about 2 weeks at the end of term, which was kind of dead time. And I immediately went to the Oxford Playhouse, where indeed I got a job, which was for 2 weeks, to be in The Happiest Days of Your Life, to play the Scots girl, Elizabeth Cahoon. And this was immediately trodden on, and I wasn't allowed to do it. So then I decided to go to drama school. I mean, I'd made up my mind to do that anyway before I left school. And they started a drama school in Oxford, where I live. And it was attached at that time to the Playhouse. And I went there for 2 years. I wanted very much to go to RADA. I mean, it was everybody's dream to go to RADA, and my parents, I suppose quite rightly, didn't want me to go to London when I was 16 and live on my own.
And from drama school you went where?
When I was at the Playhouse, I used to work in university productions, because they did an awful lot of them there. And they did lots of cabarets and revues, and they were all sort of run by Ned Sherrin, Desmond O'Donovan, people like that. And I did those endlessly. And if you were bright enough at Oxford, you could almost do weekly rep round the colleges. You could get enough productions to do a term to keep you very busy.
And you were playing light parts, comedy parts?
Yes, always. I
review.
was always in review and cabaret. I don't know why. I did do Twelfth Night for Ards. I suppose that was one of the earliest things I did. And then playing Viola. And then the reviews that I was in were taken up to Edinburgh, and we did fringe productions. I think we were sort of about the first fringe shows up there.
It was through one of those late night reviews that you got the mythical break.
The break. Yes, it was in one of them we did on the fringe, and they brought down to London, to the Watergate, which doesn't exist anymore, the Watergate Theatre. I can't remember which one it was called now. I think it was Oxford 8 or one of those things, which was seen by the American director, who then took me to Broadway, It was called New Faces.
And was it successful?
It was moderately successful, yes. I mean, it was rather sad, because everybody in it expected it to be a huge success, as the one before had been, and obviously it wasn't. And everybody who went into it thought, we're going to come out stars, because...
Did you think that too?
I don't know what I think. I was so overwhelmed at the thought of going. In actual fact, I didn't enjoy it at all, but I was so excited by it. I mean, I thought anything could happen. I suppose I must have thought I would come back a great, huge star.
And then you came back to London?
I came back for a holiday, actually. But then I did a television here called Boy Meets Girl, which Silvio Narizzano directed. And also Michael Codron asked me to do Share My Letters with Kenneth Williams. And I decided to stay.
Again, more like comedy. Was this what you wanted to do?
I didn't really want to do it. And yet it became a kind of habit. Everybody thought of me in that way. They thought of me as, always in review, or a review artist. And it became absolutely stuck. I don't think I really thought about it very much. I think I was so overwhelmed and so carried away with myself.
At working at all?
At working at all, yes, that I was sort of really rather grateful for that.
Now we're going to have a look at a clip from one of your films, The Pumpkin Eater. Now, you play the au pair girl in a rather unconventional household. The mother is played by Anne Bancroft, and you're discussing the merits of her husband, played by Peter Finch. You're discussing his merits as a father. Do you enjoy filming?
Not very much, no.
Why not?
I don't know. I think you have to be a screen actress. I really don't think I am. I think you have to have a completely different outlook. You know, by the time I get on the floor after 2.5 hours of makeup, I find it impossible. And also the lack of contact, the fact that there isn't an audience, the fact that it's all a question of how you look. People are always worried, always. They're around you all the time, trying to make you look like this, your costume isn't right. I don't know, I found by the end of the day that one's morale was so low. But maybe the camera is so close that you feel you can't do anything because it will look ugly. You know, you get so concerned with the fact that you're in the wrong light, or if you do that, it's unattractive on the camera and you mustn't do this. You get so inhibited, at least I do, that I tend not to do anything. I always feel that I'm fine in a film if I'm acting a neurotic person or a small, tight, shy person. That's not quite so difficult.
Maggie may not have liked film acting, but the film world liked her. And 2 years after that interview, she won the Best Actress Oscar for an unforgettable performance in the prime of Miss Jean Brodie. Later, she would discuss her triumph with Michael Aspel in the 1970 programme Personal Cinema. The conversation here begins with a question about her Brodie co-star and then husband, Robert Stevens.
Your husband is a distinguished actor and a busy one too. Do you ever meet?
Yes, well, we meet quite a lot at the moment because we're working together. So we do meet, yes.
But we've worked together more than once. Of course, you were together in the prime of Miss Jean Brodie.
Yes, we were in that, and we have worked together a lot at the National. And that's where we're working now. So we do really see quite a lot of each other.
Which, do you enjoy? Obviously, it's nice to see each other. What's it
Oh,
like to
yes,
work?
because, when Robert was filming himself, I didn't see him at all.
What about filming, though? You're not too keen on the rigours of filming, are you?
Well, no, because I think rigours is exactly it. I think it's... I have great admiration for people who work only in the films, because I think it's just a killing existence to work those hours. And it's very isolating, because you only meet the people you're working with in the unit. You can't have any other kind of existence at all.
There must be advantages, though. What about the range of characters and parts you can play in the cinema?
That you can play in the cinema? Well, that's true, but there are an awful lot of things you can play in the theatre. And there really aren't an awful lot of parts for women in the film industry at the moment.
I suppose the lack of teamwork and cohesion, continuity must be one of the great drawbacks.
Yes, that's true. I mean, again, it's difficult for me to judge because Brodie is the longest part I've ever had in a film, and therefore I did get to know people. I didn't just drift in and out of the studio for 2 days here or a week there. So it did have more continuity than anything else I've worked on.
Now, you've got more awards than most people can fit on one mantelpiece. What is your feeling about awards?
I don't really know. It seems to me, I mean, I suppose you're talking about Oscar awards, because that's...
Well, and practically every other thing I read that you seem to have picked up.
Well, awards are always, I mean, they're nice to have, and they're very rewarding to have when you realize you've been awarded them by people who are in your own profession. And therefore one can't treat them lightly. They are very meaningful as far as that is concerned. When people ask you, what will it mean to you now you've got this award, it's difficult to say what it means. It just means that you want to go on and hope you can live up to it, really.
Yes, that's the thing. I suppose it stimulates in one way, and the other thing is, oh my goodness, I've got to keep up to it.
Yeah.
You won the Oscar for Jean Brodie. You weren't able to collect it yourself, were you?
No, because I was opening here in a play.
Yes. Have you been in America when the awards are handed out? What sort of atmosphere is it? Do you know?
Well, no, I haven't. We were there in Los Angeles on tour with the National Theatre when the nominations came out. And that was hysterical enough. So I dread to think what happens on the actual occasion. I mean, even seeing the replay of the Academy Award, which we saw on television, one felt nervous then, and we knew the results, but it seems odd, that kind of mounting. I suppose that really is the one award, really, that nobody knows anything about anyway until the last moment.
Maggie Smith, the interesting thing is that with all your acclaim, you're not over-jubilant. You've been described as Miss Downbeat, that you look on life with grave suspicion. The brighter the prospects, the deeper the gloom. What do you say about that?
I suppose it must be true. I don't know why. Perhaps it's because, you know, when things go well, it is a bit alarming. I sometimes think that I've had so much luck and so much good fortune that it frightens me somehow. I always feel there's got to be something, you know, must go wrong somewhere. Maybe I'm just always waiting for it.
Well, it doesn't really happen yet. Several years ago, after yet another successful first night, it's not wood, it's plastic, unfortunately. I think it was the rehearsal of Ennui. Somebody asked, what will you do next? And you said, I think I'll go to the pictures once on. Is that your normal form of relaxation?
Well, it was then, I must say, because that was a long run. And believe me, when you're in a long run, you want to get out and see as much as you can and relax. At the moment, and working in the way I do at the moment, I very rarely have that time. One rehearses during the day, plays at night, and if you go on tour, it's not all that easy.
What about filming one of these restoration comedies that you revel in?
I don't think they would film. I
The
really
Taming
don't.
of the Shrew worked very well. It's not restoration, but it...
Yes, I can see that. I mean, maybe you could film a play like the one I'm in now, which is a Farquhar comedy, which is much later on and is much simpler. But I really don't think anybody would want to see all those people with snuff boxes and fans and waving about all over the place. I think it would be just boring. And also the plots are so complicated and the language is so convoluted. Nobody could be bothered, I don't think.
Now, you took a year off completely, didn't you, when your first child was born? Was that hell? I mean, being away from work.
To be honest, yes, it was. It wasn't hell to begin with. And then I got more and more kind of moody and grumpy, and I realized that it was just silly to try and stay at home. But in actual fact, it was marvelous because going back after being away from that for that length of time, I felt in some way that I sort of recharged my batteries somehow. The break was good. You can work too much.
You spent 6 weeks recently in Los Angeles with the National Theatre. Do you think that helped you, making that contact with American audiences, to win the Oscar for Miss Jean Brodie?
I think it probably did have a lot to do with it, because the theatre itself got coverage, you know, in the newspapers there. And I think on the whole people sort of really don't know who I am. I just think it sort of jogged their memory in some way.
Yes. Did they take long to perfect?
No, we had a very good dialogue coach, very good girl called Margaret Gordon, who was at the Gillespie School in Edinburgh, which is in actual fact the school where a teacher like Miss Brodie did exist.
Oh, I see. Now, your own style invites bizarre descriptions. For example, a voice like an undisciplined slate pencil, but you sang like a good one in Oh, What a Lovely War, didn't you?
Pre-recorded,
Ah.
I hasten to add.
What would you not turn your talents to?
I don't know. I mean, give me a start. I mean, do you mean would I romp around nude, or would I be in one of those kind of films?
For example?
Well, for example, no. I mean, I don't think I would. I think I'd have a go at anything if it were interesting enough, and if I liked the script.
One of the scripts Smith did like was a film version of the Graham Greene novel Travels with My Aunt. Katharine Hepburn had been due to star as Aunt Augusta Bertram, but when she fell out with the producers, Maggie got the part. The role earned her another Oscar nomination, which she discussed on Parkinson in 1973, alongside fellow guest Sir John Betjeman.
What exactly does that mean to you when you hear that you've been nominated? I mean, are you pleased? Or?
Well, yes, I'm very, very pleased in this because I was very, very much last minute in the film.
Yes, because Catherine Hepburn was...
Yes, exactly, and for reasons that I don't think are clear to anybody except for Miss Hepburn, obviously, and Mr. Cukor and the powers that be in MGM. I don't really know what happened. But I am delighted because there were many struggles in the film, the fact of the age and the makeup and many, many things. And also I'm very pleased for Bobby Fryer, who in actual fact produced
Gene Brody, right.
and who really fought tooth and nail for me to play the part.
Do you think
this is also a film of his, so I'm very glad for him.
Do you think you've got a chance?
I honestly don't think so this time.
Don't you? Why not?
I didn't before. I just don't think so this time.
No.
I really, really don't.
No. Will you be going to the ceremony?
Well, no, I can't. I'll be working
Of course you're
here,
working, you're doing the private licensing, but in
for
fact...
which I'm deeply relieved, because
Really?
I have been there. I was there when we were playing in Los Angeles, and I had to present an award to, in actual fact, John Mills.
Yes.
Won it, and it is the most terrifying experience ever.
Why?
I don't know. I think it's probably because it's the one award in the world that people really do not know. They just do not know, and there is something so naked and unkind. The cameras go in on all the people who are likely to get it, and the hope and in their faces, and when it goes, you know, you just...
They've all got those stitched-on smiles,
well,
haven't they?
You know, they obviously want it so desperately, and of course there it does mean much more than it does to us here. An
Yes.
Oscar is a tremendous award to get.
But
really.
did it mean anything for you, though, in real terms, Maggie, when you won it for Gene Brody? I mean, in terms of work? I mean, did all of a sudden people start ringing you up?
No, there is a kind of legend which has happened since the Oscars. They always sort of say that you don't work very much after you get one. I don't understand why. I think it goes back to the fact that if you won an Oscar in the old days, let us say, your salary immediately jumped enormously, and of course that cannot happen now. It's unrealistic. So the money thing doesn't come into it. But there is this odd thing that you don't get offered work because of an Oscar.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
What do you do with a statuette? Do you put it on the sideboard at home or something?
And mine is actually holding a door open.
Really?
And it's very friendly, actually. It's extremely useful for it.
Gold? Is it gold?
No, it's not gold. It's extremely heavy, and no doubt very useful if intruders come in.
Can I ask you about playing comedy, Maggie? Because it delights you, obviously, to do comedy. You like doing comedy.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Does one have to be a necessarily funny person to be a comedian?
No, I think in actual fact, I think an awful lot of people who are in comedy are very serious.
Yes.
It's an old saying that comedy is a serious business,
Right.
but it is, really.
Yes.
Academy Award eluded Maggie on that occasion, but 5 years later, she did win the Best Supporting Actress Oscar, starring opposite Michael Caine in California Suite. The 1980s were a blur of awards. Maggie won the Best Actress BAFTA 3 years in succession for A Private Function, A Room with a View, and The Lonely Passion of Judith Hearn. Perhaps not surprisingly, after a run like that, the 1990s saw her made a dame for services to the performing arts. And so it was as Dame Maggie Smith that she made this appearance on Barry Norman's film 93, looking back on her career and discussing her role in The Secret Garden.
What you've been doing lately, it seems to me, is that you've been alternating smaller independent movies like The Lonely Passion of Judith Hearn and now The Secret Garden, which we'll come to in a minute, with glossy Hollywood movies like Hook and Sister Act and now Sister Act 2. Now, is this a game plan?
No, it's not by design at all. I quite honestly, I just go where if there's work, I do it, and if there isn't work, I don't do it. It's as simple as that, and I have never worked by design or with any plan in mind at all. It's just these things come up, and
I kind of go ahead and do them.
For instance, Hook, you know, the 93-year-old Wendy Darling.
Hook, I think because they had a lot of trouble finding a Wendy. And they went on and on and on, and really I blame Anthony Powell, who's a dear, dear friend, who was doing the clothes, and he kept saying that I could do it. And finally Stephen said, well, how old is Maggie Smith? And Anthony said, without blinking, 96, he said. So I sort of went ahead and did it. It was hell, actually.
But you did it as an act of charity to help the poor, struggling young Steven Spielberg to establish himself.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I got the part and I was delighted to have it, because otherwise, I mean, I would never work with somebody like Spielberg, and that in itself was interesting. I mean, it was extraordinary. He works at such speed always, you know. So he wants to get on. He's got film coming out of his fingers almost. It's a strange, strange thing.
Why have you been playing very old ladies lately? I mean, 93...
I think because I am an old lady.
Oh, nonsense. I mean, you are Maggie Smith and you're in your prime.
No. I think this is... I think it just happens. I mean, I'm always playing these sort of rather sour, faded women, and I'm always in corsets, and I'm always in wigs, and I'm always in those button boots. It's sort of like a kind of... It's typecasting, I suppose.
Oh.
I can't remember when I last appeared in modern dress.
You know that it's often said that people become actors because they have a certain shyness and are unsure of who they actually are. Would that be true of you?
Yes, I think it's very, very true. And the really awful thing is it doesn't get any better. It's one of those weird things. Because you never do find out who you are.
I was told that when you're doing The Lonely Passion of Judith Hearn, which I imagine you must have been very pleased with, but that you were on location in Dublin and that you deliberately didn't stay in the same hotel as everybody else because you actually wanted to feel and taste the loneliness of living on your own. Alongside Olivier, when he said, have you ever tried acting?
I just thought it made much more sense to go home and be in a hotel when you're on your own. You go home and you go to the elevator and you go on the left elevator, obviously I'm well-travelled, and you go up to your room and that's it. You don't actually go into the hotel, see everybody at the bar and say, oh, hello, yes, of course, oh, yes, or I'll have some before that madness lies. So it's to do with weakness of character, not trying to find one, you know.
You've done a wide variety of roles. I tell you, something you did, a very small part, in a film which I always think was greatly underrated, and that's Oh, What a Lovely War, Dickie Attenborough's.
Oh, yeah.
What I thought was fascinating about that was that when we first see you, were terribly glamorous on the stage, and you continue to be glamorous throughout the song, and then suddenly there's a quite harsh close-up, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm very proud of that, because it was my idea. And
was it?
Yeah. So I was very, very pleased with that. But that is a very frightening thing when you see them with an enormous amount of makeup and looking completely startling and ludicrous, really.
I've got a clip of that to show you as well.
Oh.
He was singing.
I don't think I can even listen to this.
If only other girls would do as I do, I believe that we could manage it alone. But I turn all suitors from me, the sailor and the Tommy. I've an army and a navy of my own. On Sunday, I walk out with the soldier. Monday, I'm taken by a tar. Tuesday, I'm out with a baby boy scout. On Wednesday, a huzzah! On Thursday, I gang out with a Scotty. On Friday, the captain of the crew. But on Saturday, I'm willing, if you'll only take the shilling, to make a man of any one of you.
No, I enjoyed that. You obviously didn't. You sat there with your fingers in your ears.
No, I've never been able to sing. Never, ever. Oh, well.
You have a reputation, thoroughly deserved, of stealing films from other people. Michael Caine, when you got your second Oscar for California Suite, he said you didn't just steal the film, you committed grand larceny. And then when he heard that Michael Palin had cast you in The Missionary, his only advice to Palin was, watch out or she'll steal the film from under your feet. Is this deliberate, or does it just happen that way?
Not at all. It was Burton who started all that off, Richard Burton saying that in VIPs, and that really was the wildest thing, because it was a scene that we shot, and I was told, you know, Margaret Rutherford is over there, and so-and-so is over there, and Orson Welles is over there, and of course nobody was there at all. There was kind of a bit of cardboard with Richard sitting in front of it. So Wellman had to pretend all this was happening. So under those circumstances, it's quite difficult to do it by design.
Yes, it would be.
I think it's just the parts are probably like that. You know, perhaps people always have sympathy for that kind of person, the downtrodden aunt in the corsets and the boots that I'm always in.
In 1976, you went off to Stratford, Ontario for 3 years, and I think there was a bad time in your private life because your marriage to Robert Stevens was breaking up. Not good professionally. It was said, probably not by you, but by somebody else, and it may be the truth, that you were running away to escape the demons and the pressures.
I mean, it wasn't a good time, obviously, when my marriage broke up. That wasn't good. I was also acting very, very badly. I mean, I really was, because of all kinds of pressures. I mean, no reason for excuses, there aren't any. And I was there for a long time. But I was really, really glad and really stimulated by being there. And it was great to be away from the pressures of it just felt different doing all those plays in the middle of a field in Ontario, you know. Somehow the pressures of the critics and things wasn't so strong. You didn't feel... I always feel nearly every time I do anything that it's like an exam. It always feels like that, and that you get marks at the end. That's how I always think of reviews.
And now, of course, I mean, the film that's coming up is The Secret Garden, which I must say I did enjoy immensely. Again, what made you do that? Was it simply that somebody offered you this script with this very good role?
Absolutely. When I read the book, ages and ages ago, the character that I was playing was not at all like me. It was very different working on that film, though, because they treat children and animals quite well, which is nice to know. But, so that was good. I mean, that was terrific. So you didn't feel like a kind of rag the entire time. And because Agnieszka, it's heaven forfend that I say it's because she's a woman, but it certainly had something to do with it. Would, from time to time, and when we got to the end of a scene, would say, "Why don't you go and take off these, these corsets and things? You will feel more comfortable." Well, that was wonderful, because I can promise you I'd spent weeks on end in the wretched things on Merchant Ivory films. When nobody would even... They actually left me in corsets up a mountain one day for days, I think. And by then you're dead. Little Kate, that wonderful face, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kate made.
When you look back now over your career, you must be fairly chuffed at the way things have turned out.
Nothing has changed. It's still as precarious as it ever was. I mean, there's another wonderful thing that I wanted to do with Lindsay Anderson, and we're trying to set it up. It's a Chekhov, and of course that's difficult. And the producer had sent it to several companies. God knows it might be this one, for all I know. And he got a letter back which said, "Dear Mr. Chekhov, thank you for..." Now that's terrifying, isn't it? I have seen a Xerox of the letter.
I mean, you must take satisfaction out of some of the things you've done.
Oh, yes, I'm not saying I don't, but I'm just saying it doesn't guarantee that you will ever do anything else.
So if I say, what does the future hold, you are going to say you haven't the faintest idea,
I
presumably.
haven't the faintest idea. I really haven't the faintest idea. But it better be something soon, because I shall drive everybody mad if I don't work, I know that.
Of course, more work did come, along with more praise and awards. Today, Dame Maggie's profile is higher than ever. Scene-stealing performances in Downton Abbey and the Harry Potter movies, meaning this national treasure is recognised right across the world. When most would be well into retirement, she carries on, saying of acting, "I love it. I'm privileged to do it, and I don't know where I'd be without it."